One of the things that I'm really grateful for right now is that NATO is not directly involved in any active conflicts. I mean, imagine what would happen if China tried to take over Taiwan. I don't want to know because looking at what they're doing to the military is astonishing. So right now they're focused rather on training better killers and better soldiers. They're trying to cuddle the feelings of a very fringe minority with an ideology that doesn't even make sense. Because it is, from my understanding, and believe me when I say that I have been educated very, very well, both on Reddit and on Twitter, that gender is a social construct. And as such, you can change it the same way that you can change fashion. So why don't they try to change the soldiers into the gender of masculinity? Because it is the social construct that says it brings violence and toxicity, right? So don't you want your soldiers to be toxic? Like when they're charging the enemy lines, the enemy should be scared of how toxic the soldier is and how violent and brutal they are, right? Because again, like if gender can be changed, then surely the military, which can change a civilian into a soldier, should be able to change even if someone happens to be a woman when they enlist. It's like, you're a woman no longer. You are now a brute, a person capable of taking the lives of the enemy, a monster of the battlefield. You know, like, wouldn't that make sense? But no, apparently, it's like, well, you can be whatever you want to be, sweetheart. You know, if you want to be someone that's kind and compassionate and understanding, you can do that. I just want to point out how ridiculous this ideology is and what it has done to people. All jokes aside, right? Like, this is a real event. What I'm going to tell you now is a real story. I talked about it on my secondary channel. There was this VTuber mama. A VTuber mama is the person who draws VTubers, right? And she was in Ukraine. Now, she happened to be under the shellings when it happened in their capital of Kiev. It's not Kyiv, it's Kiev. And she was tweeting and showing images of her school being destroyed, of the building next door being damaged, you know, like horrible stuff. Like, imagine you're a teenage girl and you get to see those things as you're growing up. And she used a slur against the Russians on Twitter. She said, those Russians, insert homophobic slurs, said that there's a ceasefire today, but they broke it. Right? That's why she tweeted. Immediately, the people from the first world, the ones with the Ukrainian flags in their bio, but they're not really from Ukraine, they started tone policing. How can you say that? Homophobia is never acceptable under any circumstance, even when you're under enemy bombardment. And I was thinking, like, okay, so they're trying to push inclusion in the battlefield, right? I suppose if a soldier has a potty mouth, he needs to be cancelled and sent home, right? Like, no homophobes in the military. But all jokes aside, I mean, we really got to experience, for those of us who actually paid attention, what happened in Ukraine and how quickly the ideology went away. Right? All of a sudden, Nazis can be soldiers too because, well, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. People who identify as women, they still can't leave the country because they need soldiers, so they don't really care. Oh, I identify as, I don't know. It's like, you were born this way, you're going to stay within the nation, and you're going to fight for your country. And there's no inclusivity in the Ukrainian army, as far as I know, right? Like, there's no diversity officers, there's no apparatchiks, there's no commissars to try to, we need diversity, inclusion, and equity. There's none of that. It's like, we need people to fight and defend the homeland. That's pretty much what it is. I guarantee to you that when the war in Ukraine is going to be over, and hopefully if Ukraine manages to get into the European Union, you're going to have some of the most far-right nation that you have ever seen. It's going to be even more right-wing than nations in Africa. And for those of you who don't follow African politics, let me tell you that even the most far-left political party in Africa is extremely far to the right on political and social issues. So you're going to have that in Europe because nothing creates more right-winginess than a conflict, a military conflict where you bleed for your country. Like that is the whole thing. You know, the modern left-leaning ideology is one that tries to destroy the nation state because the nation state is oppressive. It is cisgender, heteronormative, right? But when you actually see people dying for that state, well, you start to care about it a little bit. So nationalism starts to show its ugly head, like the left likes to say. It breeds a lot of reactionaries. But anyway, so the army is considering replacing, this is in Britain, replacing century-old ranks such as riflemen and guardsmen with gender neutral because they are too masculine. Right. General Sir Patrick Sanders, chief of the General Staff, could break hundreds of years of battlefield tradition to make regiments more inclusive. Sanders, also Colonel Commandant of the Rifles and the Honorable Artillery Company, is poised to ditch the ranks in its own regiment. Like, imagine this is your job, right? Like, this is what you have to do. You're there to train soldiers. It's like, yeah, but like, let's change the language, let's get rid of tradition. When a lot of people who join the military, especially in Western nations, do so because of tradition. Like, they do so because their father was in the military, their grandfather was in the military, they take pride in that. But you're like, no, like, let's get rid of tradition. Let's be more progressive and woke. The changes are understood to be part of a periodic review of terms and terminology. It was reported that the move was prompted by service women who told Sanders that masculine titles makes them feel more excluded. Well, again, it's like having civilians complaining that the military makes them feel excluded. Because, like, well, we're civilians, and I identify as a civilian, and what you're doing here at the military, like, civilian life is not something that you promote. And I want to check my smartphone whenever I want. I want to do whatever I want. Like, why do I have to follow orders and shit? Again, if it makes you feel excluded because you're listening to harsh words, how are you going to feel included when bombs are dropping all over you? Right? But again, like, one of the problems is that the people, and I believe this, the people who join the military, especially in Britain, they do not expect to see conflict, right? Which is understandable because we're in a time of peace. But if you're going to coddle them, like, heaven forbid, if they ever get deployed, how are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do? How will they accomplish? And not only that, it's like, okay, so you don't want to be called a rifleman. But what about all the other people who do want to be called riflemen? Like, why is it that every single fucking time the majority has to bend to the wills of the minority? Like, why can't the people who don't want to be called riflemen, like, have a different designation? Like, put them in another place. Okay, well, and not to mention, right? Like, you knew the rules. How is this a thing? Like, you knew that when you join the military, you get to be called a rifleman? And like, for some reason now you object. I definitely think that this is just made up shit. This is just like so you can get the spotlight. You say the things that you know the culture is going to accept so that you can get the spotlight and be like, oh, well, I did a change. What did you do? Oh, well, I was not rifleman called. Okay, but like, does it change anyone's life? No. One London-based soldier who asked to remain anonymous told the Times that he had no strong opinions about the step and described the issue as culture war nonsense. A final decision is expected from Sanders soon. The Royal Air Force scrapped the last of its gender-specific ranks last year, with aircraftsmen being replaced by air specialists. I see. The chair force, yes. An army spokesman said the army is proud of its heritage and traditions, which have contributed to making it an effective fighting force over the year. Our people give the British Army a unique edge, and we value every soldier equally. Oh, fuck off. Like, everyone knows this is not true. Everyone knows that this is not true. The mission takes priority. but still, I love how he just said things in order not to get in trouble. Because, like, if he would have had, like, a stance against it, you know how the wind blows. So yeah, to me it's not really surprising because the British Army has been struggling with getting recruits. Like, if you guys remember a couple of years ago, there was that commercial where they called upon snowflakes to join the military. And the person that had his face designated on the poster as a snowflake sued the military. I don't know if he won yet or if the lawsuit is over, but it's the absolute state. It's the absolute, like, yeah, we need gamers. We need gamers to join the military. Unironically, like, they had a commercial where they were calling upon gamers because, like, they have strong attention span. How about, like, hardened men? Like, we need people that are wood choppers or something like that. People from construction, muscular men. I mean, look at this guy. Does he look like a snowflake to you? I mean, he looks like a badass motherfucker. But anyway, right, so, it is what it is. But yeah, it's like a religion at this point. Like, it has to be everywhere, in everything. This ideology. If it's not somewhere, then it's a problem, right? So until literally every aspect of society is being with this ideology, then it's not good enough. And the reason they're doing this is to make people feel isolated. So if you disagree with this, you need to feel alone, and you need to feel that there's going to be backlash if you have a different opinion. I mean, you have a person from the military, an army spokesman, right? And he's afraid to talk about it. This is the reality. Like this is an ideology which gets people to be afraid to speak their mind. It doesn't change their mind. Like, they're still going to believe what they believe, but they're not allowed to express it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section, because I do allow you to express yourselves. Take care.